Well, hi, everybody. Welcome live to In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, live on Wednesday afternoons on LinkedIn Live. I'm from Pro Cannabis Media, coming to you from our world headquarters just outside of Boston. We're so happy to have our Emerald Media correspondent and our good friend, Christina DeGiovanni, live from the Big Apple. Hi, Christina. How are you, and how is New York today?
Hi, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me. New York is a little gloomy today. I'm getting some notifications from Con Edison about severe weather, but I think we will just pass right through it. So, just another reason to spark up when the power goes out.
There you go. And spoken like a true meteorologist wannabe. Okay. I too do love my little weather, and I walk around with my little weather channel and other devices just to check the radar and make sure everything's going to be okay. Because we can't control the weather, can we, Christina?
No, we can't. We can only control our stash.
That's Tell us about Emerald Media. Go ahead. You get to talk a little bit about what you've accomplished, where you're at, where people can find you. Go ahead. This is your time to shine, your time to tell us a little bit about the empire that you've built down there in the Big Apple.
Wow, what a lucky girl I am. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Emerald Media Group is a cannabis news and culture magazine. We've been around since 2012. We started in the Emerald Triangle. For those of you that aren't aware of the Emerald Triangle, it's an area about 5 hours north of San Francisco. It consists of Humboldt County, Mendocino County, and Trinity County. And at one point, it was estimated they collectively cultivate 70% of the United States cannabis. So it is cannabis country, America's cannabis heartland up there, and that's right where we're from. So we do a quarterly print magazine. We publish daily articles on our website. We do podcast series. We do videos. We send a newsletter out 3 times a week. And we really are just about bringing that representation to the table and having that conversation and showing people what the cannabis industry actually is. It's not the days of the devil's lettuce. It's not the days of boobs, blunts, and bongs anymore. It's the days of our grandparents and our parents and our aunts and our uncles going into a dispensary and purchasing cannabis legally. And so we really do pride ourselves on the product reviews that we do. We interview entrepreneurs in the industry. We do dispensary tours. We do tours of cultivation sites. And so again, we're really just trying to expose the true cannabis industry to all the people that are already in it, but also to newcomers as well. So that's our mission in a nutshell. I am, as you said, I'm on the East Coast now. Started in Northern California, ended up in Brooklyn, New York, which is where I'm at today. So we cover coast to coast cannabis news, and we love working with Pro Cannabis Media also.
Yeah, we are friends. And that's the best part of this is you get to meet people like yourself who have a similar mission. And this is what we do is we want to tell the stories of the cannabis industry in their own words. And you and I met a few years back at a New England Cannabis Convention event. And sure enough, that is happening next week back in Boston at the Heinz Auditorium over 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It'll be the first in-person cannabis conference in the Boston area in well over 2 years. And Christina, you just came back from Las Vegas where they had their first cannabis face-to-face conference as well. I got to ask you, I know that it was the lead story of our Weed Talk News last week, but can you reflect a little bit about that experience? You came out of there, you were pretty high. You were pretty excited that it had gone off as well as it did.
Yes, the energy was high. The momentum was fierce. I had such a great time. Vegas is always a great time. And, we've gone to many conferences in Vegas before, but we've never exhibited before. But we were exhibiting this time, and it was awesome. So for anyone out there who's ever considering exhibiting at a Vegas convention, I highly encourage it. The quality of the conversations and the people that were there was priceless. It was really just an all around good, wholesome time. It was for Cannabis Business Times magazine, who we've worked with for a long time in the industry. They used to have their conferences in Oakland, California. They've moved it to Las Vegas, which I think was a great move for them. Lots more people came. And it's just very easy to get to Vegas. So overall, looking back, the conference was great. Again, had met some great people, had some good conversations. I was not nervous about COVID. I know a lot of people are hesitant and reserved to go out. And I want to say proceed with caution, but also it's okay to live life. You know, I mean, we can't hide inside forever. But I do understand everyone's concern, and there is a mask mandate in Nevada. And I heard somewhere that is there a mask mandate in Massachusetts? Okay, so there is a mask mandate in Massachusetts now. So if you're going to NECAN in Boston next weekend, keep that in mind. You're going to have to mask up.
It is in Boston. I will make this clear. I want to make sure I'm clear about this since I'm up in Massachusetts. It is up to each individual town. And yes, in Boston, they now have an indoor mask mandate. And I believe some restaurants are requiring you to show vaccination or proof of vaccination, whether that is a card that you perhaps can carry around. I have one in my wallet, but I also have a photo of it on my phone. So, if you are planning and watching from outside the area, you do want to make sure that you get yourself vaccinated or at least proof of vaccination before you show up, so that you can get into that event. And that's important. I'm not 100% sure that they're looking for proof of vaccination to get into NECAN. But if you want to go out to restaurants in the city of Boston or take part in any of the nightlife, then I'm pretty sure that you do have to have at least a mask on and have at least access to proof of vaccination. I think I'm pretty sure about all those information anyway. Christina, as someone who's been around the world a little bit, or at least this great country, are you noticing, and especially New York, which is where you're at, and we are going to talk a little bit about the new laws in New York that allow you to consume in public, anywhere where smoking is allowed to be consumed. A lot of states that have adult use cannabis laws are not allowing public consumption. That has caused a few issues over the last few years in Massachusetts. That being said, in New York, the issues are not as big a deal, because I think everybody accepts that if you go out on the streets of New York now, you're going to smell weed. Accurate?
I would say that's fairly accurate. I've smelt it myself, and you smell lots of things on the streets of New York, not just cannabis or cigarettes. But that being said, coming from California, I mean, they treat cannabis like alcohol. So in designated areas, 21 and above. Right. So New York taking this approach of, hey, it's, like cigarettes, you can smoke outdoors, is very forward thinking. And I, as a cannabis consumer, I appreciate that, because there's nothing, being an adult and hiding in my, in this area to like sneak a toke, it just throws me back into childhood when I was hiding from my parents. And I don't like that, because I've come a long way to be an adult. So I do appreciate the public consumption in New York, and I have partaken in that myself. So
there you go. It's funny. You bring up an interesting point. Growing up as a rebel teenager. Okay. I'm using myself here. I'm not saying you were a rebel teenager.
I was. But
another thing we have in common. We kept it from our parents. We snuck around. Now, granted, I grew up in the 60s and 70s and 80s, so it was a little bit different. But the point is, now as you get older, I know a lot of adults that keep it from their kids because they don't want to see their kids set an example for the kids, saying, hey, mommy and daddy, you're smoking that weed again. Which I find interesting, because at some point, the equation that you made and that analogy you made about alcohol, like the kids know that the adults will drink alcohol, but there's still that awkwardness, if you will, about cannabis. And I just wonder how many generations it might take. Like, I have a 31-year-old child. At this point, he doesn't care whether his dad is in the cannabis industry smoking weed or not. And to me, that's a big, big advance. But again, he's 31. He's not 17 or 16. And I just wonder, I don't have any teenage. I'm thrilled always to talk with parents about this, because I do think the more normal we treat cannabis, the quicker we will achieve normalcy in our society. What's your feeling about that?
Absolutely. I think, with every state legalizing and coming online, we are taking a leap forward in this really just dark point of our history, this, propaganda that we've gone through for generations now. My father even said, sorry for that, my mother is calling in. My father even
Get her on the
said,
phone. Come on. I'd love to talk to the mama.
hello, Mom. No, my dad even said, I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. I never thought I'd see legalization in my lifetime. And so he's, pleasantly surprised. He used to be a cannabis smoker, and then he claims when he had kids, he gave it up. But, they say they say one thing, they do another. So,
I did that. I'll admit I took 10 years off when my child was born, the first 10 years of his life. And,
right.
I found it interesting. But I do want to go back to New York City for a second. An interesting note that came across the news wires, as we used to say back in the day when they actually had news wires. Cannabis possession crimes in New York City, arrests for the first quarter of 2021, which is interesting because the law, I believe, was passed finally in April. I want to say April, May. So it was,
yeah, somewhere around there.
So just after the first quarter ended March 30th in 2021. So it was right after that. That being said, up to that point, there were 163 arrests for cannabis possession between January 2021 and March 30, 2021. And then under legalization, arrests have fallen to 8. 8.
The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the numbers, how ridiculous cannabis arrests are. I was arrested for cannabis. That's how my company got started, because the pen is mightier than the sword. And so it was a waste of resources. It was wrong to arrest these individuals, and they deserve their form of restorative justice. Just as anyone who's been a victim of the war on drugs. And the fact that it came down to 8 makes me, as a tax-paying citizen, very upset at where my money was spent. I don't want to arrest, people that are smoking weed outside, or that they have a pound of weed in their purse or something like that. That doesn't bother me. I'm not offended by that crime, quote unquote. Right. Murder and other things of that nature, assault, I'm very offended by that. Please use my tax money to go arrest those individuals and to invest in resources to counteract those crimes. But bringing it down to 8, and then I wonder about those 8 people. How much cannabis do they have? 10 pounds on them? 12 pounds on them? Like,
they had over 3 ounces. Over 3 ounces.
Over 3 ounces.
And by the way, Christina, as a regular, when was the last time you walked around with over 3 ounces on your possession? Just out of curiosity.
I've done it before. Especially in California. I'm coming from Humboldt County. Okay.
Right.
That's 3 ounces is like, I think, this big. It's like a sandwich. Right. So that's not that bad. But in New York City, I can't say that I've been walking around with that, because we're not in Kansas anymore. But
right. And your new acting governor, the lieutenant governor, Kathy, I think it's Hochul. Is it Hochul?
I believe so. I know I'm still yet to catch it, but I know it starts with an H. Hochul. I think you're correct.
I think it is. It's Kathy Hochul, has replaced the outgoing disgraced governor, Andrew Cuomo. And it does feel like, originally everybody wasn't sure if this would be a good thing or a bad thing as far as speeding up the process. It does seem like she is committed to moving forward with at least identifying the regulatory body, the people that will be in charge of the new industry.
Right. So the Senate was out. I don't know if they're back in session yet. I believe if they're not back yet, they will be this month. We need an executive director. And people, you're right. People were reserved. They were concerned, is this individual going to slow down the process or speed it up? There's way too much momentum right now, especially in New York State, to slow it down. Someone's going to get sued, and people are ready. People are so happy these days that, if you don't move this process along, I read something about this, that there's a group out there in New York that's ready to move forward if the governor is not going to move forward fast enough. But the governor herself, she said before, she's acknowledged New York's deficit. Right. She has been vocal about legalization and how that will help combat the deficit right now. And so I always believe, from the minute I knew Cuomo was stepping out and she was stepping in, I personally believe that we were on a timeline. The Senate gets back, she nominates an executive director, the Senate votes on them. If that person passes, maybe that's by October, November, then they start handing down regulations in December. People might be able to start applying for licenses in January. I've been saying that, I've been manifesting it. I hope it's going to come true. But I definitely think already she's moving faster than Cuomo did. I don't know what his opposition was to cannabis at the end of the day, but he definitely was a snail through the process. We got to get a woman in there. We got to get her to make this right, fix house. So
whatever it takes, when a man deserves, when he acts badly and is treating women poorly, at that point, power and greed can be very dangerous entities, and the sooner that is replaced, the better. And that is exactly what seems to have happened rather quickly in New York. So I certainly salute the Empire State there. The projections for the size of the market in New York are in the billions, Christina. What role do you see Emerald Media playing in that market? I mean, it seems like you're sitting in the right place at the right time, as I view it.
Well, to be completely honest, I have dreams of starting the Emerald Dispensary. So that is on my list. I will, just keep my fingers crossed and keep putting some good vibes out there. But like many individuals in this state, we all have dreams of getting into this industry legally. We don't want to be operating in the shadows anymore. We're happy to pay taxes on this stuff. Give us the green light so we can start our business, so we can, move from the legacy market over to the regulated market. For a lot of individuals, I've been doing media. When I was in California, I was cultivating cannabis. Now I've just been doing media. I am preparing myself to apply for a retail license, like many other individuals here in New York. And I can only hope that it's not a pay to play like other states have been, like those with deep pockets. We don't need the MSOs that are corporate cannabis coming in and taking the license and taking the spots of other innocent individuals of the state that are deserving of it. I hope that everyone, all the people on the ground, get a fair chance at this. And I believe that New York is progressive enough to hear the people. If we don't like the regulations, we're not going to vote on it. I feel like that's a very New York thing. In California, there was a lot of people in the industry that didn't agree with Proposition 65, but voted for it anyways. I feel like New York, if we were to just vote on it anyways to get it through the door, would have gotten through a few years ago. But I mean, we went back to the drawing board, reintroduced, and now it's gone through. And maybe that might have been because Cuomo was going through a little scandal at the time. Maybe he needed a little distraction from what was actually going on behind the curtain. I don't know, but I am grateful that it's here and that it's coming, and it's the way of the future. We need to get this out of the way. We need to get it federally legalized or decriminalized. Some people say it will never go federally legalized. It will just be decriminalized. So whatever the next move is, we need to start moving in that direction, because arresting people for cannabis is ridiculous. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's a waste of money. Stop doing it.
Right. And the prosecutors don't want to waste their time prosecuting those crimes anymore either. It's not worth it to them, the time wise, and really and truly, where is public safety in danger there? This is one of the things I continue to rail against. It's like, you've already talked a little bit about it, but you did bring up something about MSOs. I want to go back to. Don't you think in a beginning of a new industry that the role of the MSO is important to play, just to kind of get it going faster? Or would you just like it to be totally small business related, mom and pop derived? And I just don't know I can't see that as a realistic goal in a state like New York, where everything, like Texas and California, everything's got to be big. Everything's money. Everything's big. That's Texas. That's California. That's New York. Do they play a role? Are the MSOs, are they playing an important role in the beginning of an industry? I think they do.
They are showing us the path of how to be a multi-state operator. I mean, I would say the silver lining is that, they have helped open the gate. I mean, they've gotten through the threshold. So now, they burst through. So now we can come through. And I think that it is enlightening to see how you can operate in California and Massachusetts and New York. But at the same time, it's corporate cannabis, and there will always be a need for, I don't know, this analogy is not good, because I like to use the Budweiser and the craft beer analogy. Like there will always be the need for the Budweiser of cannabis,
Right.
like people like my
Right.
dad who is like, oh, one hit and I'm couch locked for the rest of the day. Like I can't go out. So like he's more of the Budweiser cannabis guy. I'm more of the craft beer cannabis kind of gal. And I'm not speaking to any of the MSOs, and the quality of their cannabis. And actually, I think in New York State for medical, they don't even sell flower at the dispensary. So I can't even say, what it's like there. But I mean, sure, everyone plays an important role here. And, I just think that as long as it's fair to everyone on the ground, because we work with so many entrepreneurs. We feature so many dispensary owners. We work with so many people in the industry. And it really is incredible to see how much capital these MSOs have raised and how corporate and structured they are. And it's enlightening for the industry because, there's always been talk in the industry about, professionalism and really making this an industry that's not dependent on word of mouth or a handshake. Now we actually use contracts, and now you're held liable when you don't follow through, and that was a common thing I used to hear all the time in California on these cannabis farms is I got ripped off. I didn't get paid out. He owes me money, blah, blah, blah. It was a low harvest. I didn't get paid. Well, guess what? Now we get to use contracts and we get to hold people liable in court. So I think that's actually a plus side to the industry. So people don't get hurt or ripped off anymore.
Right.
But it is very interesting to see how these MSOs have flourished. And again, I mean, with the fundraising, everyone is scraping for capital and financing in the cannabis industry. And it feels as though the well has dried up. And when cannabis went public on the Canadian Stock Exchange, we all know the valuations exploded. You're worth $4 million here. And there was no evidence to disprove that until time went on. Sometimes you just have to give time. And the truth came out eventually. And so, we've been battling this correction in the market, these inflated valuations. And unfortunately, it started with a lot of the big guys at the top, and it's the little guys at the bottom that get to deal with the backlash from that. So, mixed feelings there on some of the MSOs. Sure, they're great to have. And congratulations to them. They've done it well. As long as they as long as they don't forget their community, return back to your community, sponsor events, advertise in places, put yourself out there to help entrepreneurs in the industry. It's one thing to preach it, talk is cheap, but, I want to see these MSOs set aside a fund for social equity applicants or for minorities. Right. I know that Hawthorne is doing that. They set aside millions of dollars of their own money to help minority entrepreneurs. I mean, as long as other MSOs are doing that and they're actively giving back, then they've got the thumbs up in my book. But if they're not giving back to the cannabis community, if they're not sponsoring events or helping out entrepreneurs in the industry or marketing with, companies like Emerald or Pro Cannabis Media or Honeysuckle Magazine or Edibles Magazine, I mean, then that's where the red flag comes in. That's where, the term corporate cannabis does not come in your favor. Not that the word corporate is ever the most flattering word, but it's just really important to give credit where credit is due and to give that recognition and to just, turn back to your community and say, hey, you guys, it's because of our community efforts that we were able to, open up business in a legalized state, go from state to state and do that. So as long as that is, returned back to the community and that recognition is given, and for all the people that are still sitting in prison, there's over 40,000 prisoners still incarcerated for cannabis related offenses. I know that the Last Prisoner Project does a lot of legwork to get these individuals out. I hope that some of the MSOs are actively participating in that because they can afford an attorney for a prisoner. Absolutely. Why not? Help get this person out of prison. If you can afford it, do it. Don't just appease your investors. Don't just go for your bottom line at the end of the day. Actually turn around and reinvest in your community.
Right. And socially responsible capitalism is the term that is being used a lot in this industry. I totally support that, and echo all the thoughts that you're putting out there, because I do think that this industry does have an opportunity to do the right thing, not just to appease their investors, but also to make a difference in the sociological makeup of this country moving forward, as well as the ecological impact that this plant can have. And I'm specifically talking about the hemp plant in this particular case, because it's time to, lower our carbon footprint, and hemp offers the industrial arm an opportunity to do that. And Lord knows, Christina, I always believe there's plenty to go around. It's just a matter of telling enough people and talking to enough people about what we're up to, and sharing it all, because that's kind of what this plant is all about, right? It's sharing the experiences and making our lives better and enhancing it, right?
Absolutely. Come together and, stay all day. I love that. No,
Kumbaya,
absolutely.
baby. Kumbaya. That's what it's about. All right. Hey, Christina, we know we'll see you next week. How do people get to Emerald Media Group? Give a plug online. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Please visit us online at theemeraldmagazine.com. We're all over social media. Instagram is The Emerald Magazine, Twitter, The Emerald News. Visit us on LinkedIn if you're already here. Check us out. And, if you have a story that you want to get told, if you want to nominate someone to be interviewed or featured in The Emerald Magazine, please reach out to us. It's just info@theemeraldmagazine.com. Pitch us your story. Tell us what's up. We want to know. This is our job to promote you guys out there. So please reach out to us so we can do what we do best, and that is promoting you.
And that is Christina DeGiovanni from the Emerald Media Group. This is In the Weeds Live. We do it every Wednesday at 4:21, right after 4:20. And we have been looking forward to doing these things now over for a few weeks. And I'm really happy that LinkedIn has allowed us to add our little pro cannabis media input onto their platform as well. So for Christina DeGiovanni, our whole team here at Pro Cannabis Media, remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on In the Weeds Live with Jimmy Young.